All right, so with that, I think we're ready to kick it over to you, Jen. If you wanted to share your screen and tell us all about what's the new latest in Spring 25.
Sure. I see I'm sharing my screen. So before I begin, let me introduce myself to those of you who don't know who I am. So I'm Jennifer Lee. I'm based in Boston in the United States. And I've been in the ecosystem for over 10 years as a Salesforce customer, primarily in financial services. I was a Salesforce MVP prior to joining Salesforce. So I've been with Salesforce for, I think, upcoming 4 years in June in the admin relations team. And our team's mission is to enable, empower, admins to deliver success at their companies. So with that, let me start the presentation today on Spring 25 release highlights. All right, this isn't a Salesforce presentation without the forward-looking statement. So please base your purchasing decisions on current products and services. Any of the things that I'm talking today are currently in production with the Spring 25 release. So I think we're covered there. And I like to take a moment to thank you for inviting me to present the Spring 25 highlights. As a former community member, I really find user groups very helpful in sharing tips with one another and learning from each other. So again, thanks for having me. All right, so our first highlight here is we've improved the debugging in Flow. So now we've enhanced the errors and warnings pane in Flow Builder, and that will really give you better debugging superpowers. So now the error messages are actionable with direct links straight to the problem area in your flow. Plus, the errors are neatly grouped by element, making it easier to troubleshoot. So really allowing you to debug your issues faster. So our next feature is being able to access flow versions right where you need it, right in Flow Builder. You don't need to exit the flow to then navigate to flow versions to see the various versions. Right now, you can get to it right in Flow Builder. So it's really minimizing the clicks and saving you time. So no more worrying about governance limits or performance issues with Get Records. You can now set the, with the new enhanced Get Records element, you can set the maximum limit on the number of records that you retrieve. So you can choose all records up to a specified limit and then enter your magic number. And that simple change really helps prevent performance bottlenecks and ensures that your flows are running smoothly, even with massive data sets. So keep that data under control and your flows performing at their peak using that maximum number of records. All right, so we've enhanced the transform element. So now you don't really have to wrestle with those complex logics of combining the data in your flows. With the transform element, you can now effortlessly join source collections from related flow resources into a single unified collection. So what you're seeing here is that you'll be able to define your source collections, your target collections, then the join key, and then the desired fields. So in the GIF that you're seeing on the screen, what I set up was a use case where I'm updating employee records with data that's pulled from multiple sources. So in my flow, you no longer see that I have to do loops and decisions and all of that. I have that one transform element that really simplifies the data manipulation and really makes your flows cleaner, more efficient, and easier to manage. So in that GIF, what you see is I'm using a target collection in a create records element, and it shows how the salary record creation resulted in the creation of the employee record, which uses data from 2 collections. Salary collection and then the employee collection. So in the transform element, once you connect those 3 collections, it will take you to this join screen that you see here. And here you'll identify the join keys. So you'll be able to then, I selected the join type, which here was the inner join. I had the employee collection and the salary collection. And then establishing the join keys, I selected the employee ID from the employee collection, and then over to the right under the salary collection, the join ID is the ID. And then from there, can't really drill down into the screenshot, but I selected 5 fields to map to one another. All right. So now you can also send emails with attachments using the out of the box send email actions. So if you have a use case where you need to share documents, you can now do so using that send email action, allowing you to add attachments to your emails. And you simply need to add the file ID, so it's a document content version or the attachment, to the new attachment ID field that you see in the GIF there. But note that you do need to keep the email size limit to 35 megabytes. So that includes the email plus the whatever attachment you're including. But it allows you as part of your workflow now to be able to send emails with attachments. So that's pretty cool.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening with this ID when you move from sandbox to production? Do we need to go manually to update production with this thing?
Are you talking about the transform and the join and transform?
No, about this email.
Oh,
Yeah. So the PDFs the IDs will be different based on what environment you are in. So yes,
But
you will need to change
I need
it.
to manual task to go and update. Is this correct?
I'm sorry.
You
I
know,
didn't talk over you.
maybe the question is it possible to insert a resource instead of hard coding an ID? Because then if we
Yep.
move this between sandbox and production, then we have issues.
Right. I have not tried it yet to see if it could use like a custom label or a custom metadata type. But if it doesn't, I would recommend going to the Salesforce Automation Trailblazer community and posting that, and also as an idea, so that the PMs can take a look at that and prioritize it if that's currently not available. But I also can take that offline to check after the meeting and then get back to Sandy and let him know, and then go from there.
Thank you.
Jennifer, I have more of a comment. I don't really know if it's a question. In the nonprofit space, they've started introducing the data processing engine, which is new for me, but I think it's been the financial cloud for a long time, and they're doing a lot of work with join and transform. I'm just wondering if Flow is starting to imitate what was already there in functioning in the data processing engine side. And Jen, you were saying that you had a lot of experience in the financial industry. Do you have experience with data processing engine, and do you find similarities to where Flow is going to what's there in data processing?
So while I worked in financial services, Salesforce did try to sell us Financial Services Cloud, but we didn't have a use case for that. So so I never had experience working with Financial Services Cloud at all, or
Okay.
yeah, we just use the Sales Cloud and Service Cloud for what we needed to do.
Okay. Perfect. Thanks.
Yep.
Yeah. So we got another common question. Yes, Nash.
Yep.
If you have a studio, you have access to this data engine processing.
In OmniStudio.
And data engine processing is available in the Flow studio. But you need to have kind of only studio environment. It's coming with this together.
Or one of the industries verticals that offer that, right? Like nonprofit cloud that's built in now.
Yeah, one of new ones, education, new one, non-profit, new one, has it, and some of other industries like e-commerce, I believe, has it, health cloud has it.
Mm.
It's like,
Okay. So yeah, interesting. We get it. As we do, conversations happen. Please keep going. Okay.
All right. So for those of you who use Data Cloud, we do have 2 Flow enhancements. So now you could, now we're supporting more data types for Data Cloud. So you can now set entry conditions for your data model objects and calculated insight object fields for email, URL, phone, %, Boolean, and currency. And we also now allow the ability to, once you build your Data Cloud triggered flows in a sandbox, be able to move them in production using chain sets. How many people still use chain sets? Even as a customer, we moved away from chain sets a while ago, and we're using tools like Compado or something like that.
many companies use chain sets.
Yeah.
Feedback is that there are still companies in our area that are still using it.
Has anyone tried using DevOps Center?
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried one.
I don't know. Nash, I'm sure you did, right? You were talking about it.
I'm using Gearset, Copado,
Mm-hmm.
Flowsum, it's coming to me.
You
DevOps.
use tools.
Just watching problem that people have it is because I think all other tools are better than DevOps at this moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Using it, but some of my colleagues used it, and he said that feedback is it's better than change sets, but it has issues,
Mm-hmm.
things like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. So our next enhancement is from the automation app. You can now create a flow with less clicks. So it really streamlines the experience where it ties it down to 4 main categories for the common flow types, and then you can filter and search for your different automation. So that's what the GIF here shows you. Now, if you go from the setup and flow page, the look of this is different. So I think the push is trying to push people more towards using the automation app than going into setup.
There is challenge with automation app. I tried to use it, and I found that I am in my app of choice to do work for and to use it to test what I'm doing and work with it. And then I need to switch up to go to automation app. to be in automation app, and then I'm losing my own app. Now you have to work with two browsers, two kind of browsers and things like that to keep this productive. Or you blend automation app to your app of choice to be there for you, handy, things like that. I'm still more comfortable to use setup than automation app, to be honest, but it's maybe just me.
No, same. I'm just so used to naturally going to set up to do things in flow. Yeah.
Especially when you go to the object details, you have list of the flows that are on this object, and you just jump from there to the flow and go from there. It's
Mhm.
kind of automation app is good for somebody who is monitoring these things, but I'm not finding it good to be used as your main space tool.
No, I haven't used it yet. Is it solely for just generating flows?
No, it is for monitoring errors on the flows and what recent flows were updated, and it's just kind of lightening UI instead of
Setup.
setup UI, and you get few more fields that you can manage, like you can categorize your flows, you have subgroups, groups, or something like that. I forgot the exact names of the fields, but there is additional fields that you don't have in setup that you can organize your flow management by.
Oh, I have a use case with a client who needs they need all their flows to be reviewed and documented, and they're relatively new users. That might sound like a good opportunity for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
I'm gonna use that.
The reason I think that the automation tab or the app would be useful is that if somebody wants to give access to create flows and they don't want to create access to the setup page altogether, I think what kind of an admins they can give access to create flows and the app.
But I think they did it for marketing engagement version, whatever is marketing app engagement version, but using the flows to manage journeys in your marketing emailing. I think this is how they came up with automation app, because this is how they try to easy up onboarding of those people to manage emails and flows to run them. But if you are creative, you can make use of it. Just didn't spend much time on it.
Cool.
All right, I am going to move on. So, all right, so in screen flows, we now have the ability to guide your users using built-in progress indicators. So your users no longer need to guess where they are in the process. You can provide a clear visual guide that really tells the user where they are in the process, because I know that when I complete surveys and there are multiple screens and I'm going along and completing a survey, I'm like, how many screens are there left? Like I've already completed like 5 screens, and then I end up like closing it out because I'm just like, I don't know how long this is and I've spent enough time. So it's just great when you have those multiple screens to give your users some type of indication as to where they are. And that really boosts up completion rates and user satisfaction. So now you can configure the indicators either at the top of the screen or at the footer, and you can also specify the style, whether it's using a simple or the path style, without having to write code. So previous to the spring 25 release, you had to create your LWC component in order to use the staging pieces. So here, this GIF shows you how to set the stage resource in the screen element. And here's where you set the progress indicator, and you can specify the indicator type and the style.
Yeah.
Right. So for orgs created with Spring 25 and going forward, the built-in progress indicator is enabled by default. So if you have orgs created before Spring 25, you're going to need to go in and manually enable the built-in progress indicator so that it's available for use in your screen flows. So this just shows you how to set the stages in the screen properties editor for the various stages. In my example here, I have 4 stages that I've set up. So our next enhancement is now you could trigger actions on your screen flows automatically. Previous to this, if you had a screen, you would have the screen action buttons that you would have to click in order for it to take action on that same screen. Now with the screen actions, they can be triggered automatically, so no button clicks. And once the input data is available, your auto launch flow can spring into action and display those results without any type of user interaction. So to configure your screen action, you do so by going to the screen property, selecting screen actions, and then when you click the add action, you then go and select your auto launch flow and then define the input variables, and then you'll watch that magic happen. So here is just an example of one that I've configured. So I have it set up to use the auto launch flow that I'm calling retrieve cupcake orders. And you'll see here in the set input variables, I'm sending information to my auto launch flow. And under the view output resources, you'll see the output variables that are available from the auto launch flow back into my screen flow for use. So here's just an example of that screen flow in action. Great. Okay, so the next item here is building flow formulas using Einstein's help. So I know that when I'm not great at creating formulas, especially complex ones that are nested. So before ChatGPT, I would have to go and Google, find examples, and then like tweak it. But now with Einstein within Flow Builder, you can have Einstein help you create a formula. So here in this GIF, what I'm asking it is to create a formula syntax with the case statement with information. And then from there, it creates that formula for me.
Is this feature needs to be enabled or it is auto-enabled after release?
Yeah, so you need to enable Einstein Generative AI in setup. And then you need to go into the process automation settings and turn on the ability to use the formulas created by Einstein. So you do need to have Einstein access.
Yeah, I think the customers are afraid to turn on Einstein because they think they will get hit with hidden cost.
Hidden cost?
Yeah, hidden cost underneath.
The consumption.
Is this use of Einstein in this matter? Does this add some cost to your account?
Unfortunately, I can't talk about any pricing implications. You'll have to talk to your account exec. I don't have that information.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this next feature is your template triggered prompt flows now allow the ability to invoke auto launch flows as subflows. So what this means is that you can reuse utility flows in your org and bring them into your prompt flows as well. So prior to Spring 25, we did not have the ability, and you would have to replicate any of your flows where you needed that same functionality in a prompt flow to use in your prompt template. So this really allows you to have more efficient automations in your org, so you're not replicating flows multiple times. All right. This next enhancement is to build flows faster using Einstein. So now Einstein for Flow is generally available, and it really allows you to create your flows using starter flows with natural language. And I say starter flows, it just makes it faster to create it, but it still requires human in the loop. I would go through, like, anything that is created by Einstein, I would still go through and review it, make tweaks to it, but at least you're not building your flow from scratch. And in some of the capabilities here, you'll be able to, once it's created, modify your prompt to make tweaks to it as well.
So this,
And
This
then,
one has,
has anyone here had the opportunity to try that? Using Einstein to build a flow?
You need the Einstein to turn on, there anything that has Einstein in the label,
Yeah, yeah.
you need Einstein turned on, and
Yeah, but even in a
I have a
demo.
brand new customer, and I ask them, hey, do you want me to turn this on and start playing? And they tell me, no, don't do it. Yeah, but
Okay, cool.
So you have
It
to
is-
turn this on and you have to set up a setting in the process.
Automation, yeah.
there is.
what
And you
I
need to
haven't done yet is I haven't created one of those new dev orgs that have Agentforce and Data Cloud. So I don't know if, because Agentforce is there, which requires Einstein, if you get those other capabilities as well to be able to play around with it.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you want to play with this, just go find Trailhead about Agentforce, and then you will have access to one of those that Jennifer is talking about.
Oh, that's what I was wondering about, because we did,
It's not regular Trailhead org, it is special.
right, we had done that in a user group meeting 2 months ago, so I'm wondering if we could have used that same org to go and try and build a
They
flow.
mostly have 30 days.
Yeah.
Chef life.
Mhm.
Yeah, so at
Play
TDX,
with them and they disappear. You'll create new one for next play.
Right. Every 30 days.
yeah, so at TDX we announced the new dev orgs that have Agentforce and Data Cloud, because we've heard from you, Trailhead, using an org created by Trailhead that expires in 7 days doesn't really allow you to play around with the functionality. So with these new dev orgs, they will expire if you don't log in every 45 days.
Gotcha.
How many dev orgs say now I need to carry? Over 20 years.
trying to keep it.
Now, this next feature also in Flow with Einstein, this is something that I'm really excited about when I saw this, is summarizing your flows with Einstein, because there are flows that I've created that I don't remember everything about it, like what does it do, or when you're managing flows that you didn't create and someone else created, and then you're troubleshooting an issue and you're really like not sure what this flow is supposed to do. being able to have Einstein summarize that flow for you is really sweet. And this is just this is just an animated GIF that shows you with that complex of a flow that is in this example. From the previous example, that was a pretty simple flow, but this one is able to summarize what's going on in a bigger, more complex flow. And then from there, once it gives you that summary, you can click the button for add to flow descriptions, and it allows you to pre-populate the properties field in your flow with a summary of what's going on.
So, Jen, this is to summarize the entire flow. Is that capability there to like summarize an element of the flow?
Right now, it's to summarize all of the flow. All right. Okay, so moving out of flow onto some other enhancements. So we now have the ability to sort list views for up to 5 columns, which really allows your users to gain actionable insights, spot trends, or prioritize tasks without having to create reports. What you need to do is enable this in user interface in setup and enable the sort by multiple columns. That's in beta here. And then here I have an animated GIF that shows you setting up the multiple column sort. And then you're also able to revert it back to the single column by setting the reset column sorting. One thing to note is that changes to the multiple column sort only applies to your user preference only. It's not something that you can set for the whole entire org. Next,
If you have list view,
sorry, go ahead.
If you have list view that is available to all in org, all users in org, you cannot predefine order for it.
That's just for your own user preference.
But there is idea, you know, tell your team to make us to be able to.
So I don't have any influence on product managers. You need to go out into the idea exchange and have people vote on it. And that's what the PMs look at in terms of
Maybe delegate to Susan, she likes my idea, you know.
Or you can campaign your ideas and have all sorts of people vote on it. And yeah, that's how we hear from customers.
Keep persistent.
So I know what you want to do, but if you want someone else to write the idea, you need to have an idea to delegate in order to have that. Right.
I just need to count this way.
All right, so the next feature is for those who have multiple orgs you support, right? Sometimes it's hard remembering the username, right? So now you're able to log in to Salesforce using your email that is tied to your various accounts. So what the GIF is showing you is that I'm accessing welcome.salesforce.com. I'm putting in my email address. Then it's pulling up all the the various accounts that are tied to that email address. And then you also have to do a verification as well to get access to that information.
Does this work for existing setups or only for new accounts that you create?
All these were existing. Yeah, and it pulls in your dev orgs as well, because in one of my last user groups that I did, someone while I was doing this presentation did it, and it pulled everything that has that same email address. So it really is helpful for managing all these different orgs for sure.
Does that play well with SSO? Do you know? If you're using single sign, as long as they're all
That
single
I
sign.
don't know off the top of my head, since none of those orgs that I have are SSO. So I recommend just trying it. Just going to welcome.salesforce.com, putting in your email address and seeing if you're able to get in.
There is question, many people use same email address for different users. I have those use cases. How this will work for this? Because you want to be able to use email to recognize uniqueness of the user who wants to log.
So it's so when you're providing the email, it's looking at your email address field in your user record, not at the username.
Yeah, I understand, but it is uniqueness of username is mandatory, is required. But
Yeah.
uniqueness of email is not required. You can reuse same email for many users if you choose to.
Correct.
And in this case, if I do this, then in
You
this
would be able
case,
to pull up all the orgs that are tied to that email address.
But you probably do that.
but you cannot log as two users. You need to choose which one of these two you want to choose. Are you going to prompt me with, hey, you have two users with the same email address and which one you want to use?
Yeah. It's going to give you all of
Because
them.
it's still gonna log in
Yeah.
with the username. It's just giving you the list. But you get
And you still
complex
have to,
behind the scenes, but
you still have to know the password. I mean, so if you have two users using the same email address, it'll give you the usernames. And yes, it'll put the username in, but you still have to enter the password.
I can do the same password for both of my users.
Well, yeah, well, that's your security hole.
even today you can go log on Salesforce.com with different usernames, same password, same email.
But different usernames, you said. I say
Yes.
it's same email,
Same email.
many
same-
users.
Right, so this is bringing up a list of all the usernames and then you select the username. I
But
think
this
that's
is
how
what
it
I'm
works.
asking. Do I get list to see?
Yes. You're getting a
Again,
list,
my
right?
problem is when I get list to see, I'm exposing my secret data from my data.
Well, you're exposing the usernames.
Usernames, but
Yes.
what
But that-
hackers need, username and then they.
So maybe that's your security hole, is using the same email address for multiple users.
It is, I agree. It is, but you cannot believe what I'm seeing on the road, I'm just saying, this is good idea if people are decent.
Right.
Okay, thank you. I just
It's
like to
interesting
talk about.
to hear, what different companies are doing. Yeah.
All right, another change that's been made is now you have the ability to customize the welcome email that is sent to your users when you first create them. So you can now go to session settings, and then under the welcome email template, point to an email template that you want to use that will replace the standard Salesforce welcome email. And that you can customize what your branding, your tone, whatever message that you want to send to your users, rather than use the default Salesforce one.
And you don't have this to work with profile, kind of? Do I want to use this for all profiles, or maybe one profile have a different message than another profile of users?
It's one message for all users.
One profile.
That's an interesting point. You have a new admin coming on, it's a lot different than the standard sales user.
Yeah, you can service, you can partners, you can all kind of, okay, partners you can manage with partner portal.
So you're gonna have a lot of ideas to put out on the idea exchange.
I think you could use like a login form
or something if you really wanted to, like sort of messaging to like certain users.
Yeah, but this is email.
Right.
Sorry, Jen, we keep cutting you off, but keep going. This is great.
Okay. All right. The next feature is for password resets. So we now have a 24-hour password reset safety net for your users. So I don't know if, for those who manage users, if you get those panicked emails from users when they accidentally click the reset link before they're ready to actually reset their password. But now these reset password links remain valid for a full 24 hours after the first click, which should give people plenty of time to reset their password and hopefully not have to reach out to you to have you send another reset password link. All right, so in terms of dashboards, we now enabled the ability for you to refresh one widget on your dashboard without having to refresh the whole entire dashboard. So you basically go to that widget, there's now a refresh icon, and then that will just go ahead and refresh that specific widget. To enable this, you need to go into setup in the reports and dashboards settings page, and then choose the let users refresh individual widgets for dashboards versus, refreshing the whole entire thing, walking away, grabbing a coffee, and then coming back, and hopefully the full dashboard will reload. In terms of app building in App Builder, for those before who may have related lists called the same thing, and having to guess which related lists it is that you're adding to your record page. We now show the ability for configuring dynamic related list single and related list single components. We're now showing the related list API name. So there's no more guessing that you need to go through, which related lists you're actually using. And then now on to user management features. So permission sets management just got a whole lot smarter. This is something that you did put out on the idea exchange. We listened and we implemented. So thank you for those who suggested it on the idea exchange and voted for it. So you now have the ability to edit which groups to include in a permission set directly from the summary page. And it just makes life easier and reduces the number of clicks that you have to go through to update a group assignment. So it's all in the summary page that you can action off of. And I really like this one, and it's supercharging user access with the new view all fields permission. So for folks who are needing to go through and really set different permissions for different users, especially in financial services, we don't give access to everybody. We really need to narrow it down. This is really cool because you can now have users who need access to all the fields. You don't need to remember when you're creating new fields that, oh, I have to give access for this. You can say, okay, in this permission set, anyone assigned in this permission set for this object, they have view all fields. And then going forward, any new fields that you create, it'll automatically give them access to it. You don't have to remember to do that. So again, it's just making life easier for folks. Again, this was something that was put out on the idea exchange. So thank you for voting for this piece. The next feature is removing user and custom permissions from a permission set summary page. Again, it's just making life simpler for you, reducing the clicks and having to navigate in setup when you could do it all within that summary page. So no more having to click through to the individual permission sets. You can do it right here. And one thing to note is Cheryl Feldman let me know, she's the PM of the team who manages user management features, is that coming soon to the summary page, you'll also be able to edit those as well. So again, just making life easier for admins. On the view groups summary page, you can now view the sharing rules and list views by group as well. So again, not having to navigate away, it's all on this page. So you can also see all the queues that are members of a public group as well. So there's also an enhanced list view for permission sets. So similar to list views that you're already seeing elsewhere in Salesforce, setup is now catching up to that. So you get all the capabilities you get with your list views that you get on the user side. So you get that enhanced filtering, the search capabilities, and all of that. We also made a change to the role list view as well. And if you go to the user settings page and setup and enable the enhanced role list view, you'll see that it changes that view from the hierarchy view to the list view that, again, you're all used to elsewhere in Salesforce. And then my last feature is, excuse me, Sales Cloud Go, which is your centralized command center for managing permissions and monitoring usage. And you access this directly from the sales setup in the setup menu, and go and view the permissions there for Sales Cloud. And that will allow you to gain access to all the relevant permission sets and permission set groups for users of Sales Cloud. All right, so for those who aren't familiar with the admin website, admin.salesforce.com, we do have a release readiness page. So with each release, you can go to this page and access information about the current release or an upcoming release. So in a few weeks, I think next month, we'll start working on the summer 25 release. It just feels like spring just happened and now we're working on the next release. And here you'll also be able to access my mega blog post that I put out with every release that has some of the highlights that I featured today, but it has even more. So we call it the mega release blog. So check that out. Also, if you like listening, excuse me, like listening to podcasts, check out the Salesforce Admin Podcast hosted by Mike Gerhold. He drops a new pod every Thursday. And for those of you who are dabbing your toes into Agentforce or can't find or figure out a use case for Agentforce or want to learn more about features within Agentforce, check out our series called Agentforce Decoded. We have a playlist for the admin ones. The developers have a playlist on their YouTube channel for developer-focused ones. But these are really bite-sized videos. They're 5 minutes or less. that either highlight a use case for Agentforce or specific features within Agentforce. So check those out. And then I'm the host of 2 video series on our admin YouTube channel, How I Solved It, where I feature a business problem and how an admin chose to solve it. Our most recent, so here's a short link to that playlist. My most recent video that we dropped, I think it was last week, is showcasing an Agentforce use case from the hackathon that was in New York last year. It is by Code Cortex. So they had a financial services use case where they used an agent to help with pulling in information from Salesforce as well as Data Cloud to help their internal users get access to information that they need, financial insights. So go there, check out that video. And I'm also working on a new series that we're targeting to come out in May called Automate with AI. So be on the lookout for that. And it will also be on the Salesforce Admins YouTube channel as well on a monthly basis. And with that, thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you, Jen. So we were handling questions on the fly there, but now that we're at the end of Jen's presentation, are there any questions that are still lingering that you want to ask?
I have a question for Jennifer. When you upload permission side, I have a related question. I have been hearing about retiring of the profile functionality for a while, and I remember I read some roadmap about replace it with wholly some with permission side. And any insight you can share with us about what's is this still a thing or any roadmap for this?
I know that they were working on a plan of end of life profile. I don't know if they had hit a wall where they couldn't fully complete that yet. I'll need to check with Cheryl Feldman, who's the PM on this, but we still highly recommend that customers move away from profiles to permission sets. It really allows you to be more granular with your permissioning, using permission sets along with permission set groups, and assigning your users permissions that are persona based and really moving away from profiles. So that's still our stance, is that best practice is to use permission sets and permission set groups, but I can find out if there's any other further progress along the end of life piece, or whether there's some type of hindrance as to why we can't yet announce end of life. It could be that there are things behind the scenes that things that we need to fix before we can actually say don't use profiles and go permission set. But
I
that's
can imagine to migrating that functionality to it's been from day one of Salesforce, right?
Yeah.
So,
It seems like they did say something and then they kind of backed off.
yeah, you didn't hear
Yeah.
for a while.
But now they're making all these improvements to how to use permission sets, so maybe
Yeah.
that's part of it. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. But good. Yeah, good to know. Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Before we let Jen off the hook, I do want to take a second and snap a picture, if that's okay.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Anybody who's online, if you're comfortable to do it, so please show your smiling face, and we'd love to include you in the picture. You got 5 seconds to make your mind up, my boy, folks. I think I can get it. All right, let's get this. Go on, Nat. Just squeeze down just a touch. All right, everyone say Agentforce.
Agentforce.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
And thank you, Jen. I know you have another appointment today, so if you need to jump off before the end of the session, that's totally fine. But yeah, thank you very, very much. I always enjoy your content.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now, Fred, we kick it over to you, my friend.
Wow. Okay. So first I do want to make sure that I'm using the mic that's the room mic. I assume everyone can hear me fine online. If anyone is staying on online, if you could let us know that you can hear us. I appreciate that. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. All right. So first I want to say thanks so much for letting me present this to you guys. I'm going to be presenting a very similar talk at True North Dreamin'. And I know you've heard me talk about this before, but this is our last chance to mention it. True North Dreamin' is Canada's Dreamin' event. So we're bringing it back. It'll be April 24th and 25th in Vancouver. So we're very excited to be bringing Canadians together in a Salesforce Dreamin' event. I know, like you've heard a lot of presentations about, of course, Agentforce, but then also sometimes Data Cloud. But a lot of times you hear these things that are about like proof of concept, but I feel like I wanted to hear more presentations from actual companies that have implemented Data Cloud and how it went and what you found. And I wasn't finding that many. And I realized that, sometimes if you're looking for something and you don't find it, then maybe you're the one who's supposed to be doing it. So I decided, okay, let me put together, because we did implement the Data Cloud, or at least we're at the beginning of implementing Data Cloud. And I thought, this is a user group I think is the perfect place to share. This is what our experience has been. This is what we've seen. But let me start out by asking, so Sylvia, I know you guys have implemented Data Cloud, or are implementing Data Cloud at Canada Post, right? Is anyone else already implementing Data Cloud?
No, but I was playing with 3 years with Data Cloud. Not having experience implementing for customer, but have some.
Anyone thinking about, or the company talking about anything like that? Okay, all right.
Thinking about it.
All right, so I will say that, we'll explain a little about me, but clearly, the Canadian Real Estate Association is relatively small. Right now, I'm the admin, that's it. I cover, Salesforce Core, Marketing Cloud, and Data Cloud, and Service Cloud, we're adding Service Cloud. So the way I implement it and the way we are implementing it will be different from a team of like 10 admins or 10 people on your Salesforce org or 20 people on your Salesforce, with developers and everyone else. But I hope that this provides some insight. So first of all, I want to cover, this is not going to be a presentation just generically about Data Cloud, but I need to at least make sure we're all speaking the same language. So I just want to cover some basics. First of all, data. There is so much data. Every company is pulling in all kinds of data, right? Not just what's in Salesforce, but in every connected system, your ERP, your websites, your social engagement, your emails. There's a lot of data. You might be aware of terms like data lake or data warehouse. So a data lake is where you pull all the data in, and then it's in whatever form it's in. You're just pulling it in. And data warehouse is you're pulling it in, but you are doing some transformation of the data, getting it into a certain form. And I should ask, how many people here are companies using data warehouses or data lakes or CDPs? You guys are. What kind of data lake do you use? What's a platform?
Azure.
Azure. Okay. All right. Interesting. So, and is Salesforce connected to that, or?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right.
So one uses that, another one, they're sort of just still leveraging some BI platforms.
Okay. All right. And a lot of times it is for that. A lot of times when people are creating data lakes or data warehouses, it's for analytics, because certainly you want to do some analysis of all that data. What's different about Data Cloud, and the reason why we went for it, was because not only does it connect you with the data that's all over, not only does it help you to harmonize the data, but it also especially if your company's very Salesforce centric, allows you to act on that data, right? And so it is giving you direct access to all the tools that Salesforce has for acting on data. Plus, it allows you to push the data out, or whatever data you're looking for, any triggers you're looking for, to any other systems you need to. So it's a really interesting platform for us. Yes, you.
I have a question about what is the entry criteria to start considering using data cloud? Like how big your data has to be when you're considering this is a good option rather than using the out-of-box system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think of it as so. First of all, I should say that like my company brought on Data Cloud before I even joined the company, so I wasn't even part of the decision making. So I'm not even sure why they decided to bring Data Cloud on, other than the use cases that I knew of. But like I had never compared it with other CDPs or other data warehouses, so I don't really know cost wise. I think that is the major question: is when does it make sense from a cost perspective?
Mm-hmm.
But I'd say from a data perspective, if you're looking at anything related to, especially engagement data, where you're talking about millions of records, like I don't know. I mean, Salesforce Core, for it to deal with millions of records, you can't do that, or it's not going to be very efficient.
Even it will delay running report, right? Like it give you like a waiting time like so long.
Yeah.
And depends on probably how many external systems you are connecting with.
Yes. Now, I assume that of course, there are ways around that. I mean, I think if you were to really think of if you weren't going to use Data Cloud, what would your alternative be? I mean, you have some sort of other warehousing of this data, and you push to Salesforce just what you need, just the actions, just when you need to act on something. So there are other ways for sure. But yeah, to me, when it comes to the data, it's about the amount.
Like how big your data is.
Well, we are so the Canadian Real Estate Association, I should say, we are a small company. I have less than 100 users, but we are also Realtor.ca. So we are the website, and so we have millions of engagement data when it comes to web engagement.
Mm-hmm.
Millions of data points through Google Analytics.
Yeah.
And so we are accessing that through Salesforce Data Cloud. Plus our email engagement. Email engagement is not as much, but it's still in the millions, even if it's not. I don't know really what the size is of the web engagement. It's huge.
So one thing I know is like the data storage cost is really like unbelievably high using Salesforce, right? Like a data
Right.
cost.
Yes.
Is that a way like you are mitigate the cost of data, like using data cloud?
Data Cloud. Well,
Other
so
than
I would not even think of bringing this data into Salesforce. Like the web engagement data,
Right.
wouldn't even do it.
Exactly.
Even email engagement, it's questionable that you would do it. I've had people who have Marketing Cloud. I've talked to people who have Marketing Cloud, who at first they use the built-in. Like how many people use Marketing Cloud? Does anyone else use? No, some people use. Like I don't know if you guys use the built-in MCC, the Marketing Cloud connector to bring in email results into Salesforce Core. It creates a record for every single interaction, and it's huge. And that's huge. That's like over time, hundreds of thousands of records, depending on the size of your org, the number of people you're emailing, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of records. So, so we decided we don't bring our email data into Salesforce Core. We bring it into Data Cloud.
Part of the conversation I don't think it was with this group, I think it was another group, but Salesforce, going back not that many years ago, it was sort of viewed as this is your 360. This is where all your data is going to go. This is where you're going to go to control everything else that you do. It was the center of the hub. Now it's more like your data lake is the center of the hub, and your CRM is one of the spokes. Maybe your web is on the other spoke. It's a shift in the way it used to be thought about.
I was just thinking about this, and there might be nothing, but if you could, I was gonna ask if you could just see if there's anything happening in the chat, just in case there are any questions.
I will try my best.
Oh, actually, I don't even know if you could do that while I'm presenting.
I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try.
All right, just a little bit about Data Cloud itself. So I'm gonna talk about the way we implemented Data Cloud through the three basic components, the way that they talk about Data Cloud, which is to connect you to data, to unify that data, and to activate or action on that data. Okay. So connecting to data, they're really, broadly speaking, there are two categories of data as far as Data Cloud is concerned. There's profile data, which is your individual, right? Basic information about the individual. Then there's engagement data. Engagement data is data that has a date that does not change, and usually is hundreds of thousands or millions of records. So those are the two kinds of data. Your individual and your engagement data. Why do I have three columns? Because, well, of course, then there's everything else. And they literally call the other category other, right? Just called other. So that's like cases, sales orders, any kind of ERP data, any other kind of data just becomes other. All right, so you're going to hear when it comes to databases and especially data lakes, the idea of normalizing data, right? Has anyone dealt with normalizing data? I don't think you've dealt with, so Nash has done it. So how would you describe normalizing data to people who are new to this?
Taking the flat structure and then normalize it to data model that is structured to minimize number of records and duplicates and repeats. So does this sound
Yes.
practical?
Yes. So, and I have some visuals to go along with that. So first of all, I found this GIF, which is so cool. I said, I'm just going to create a presentation just so I can show this. So this is, on the left side is, you have to worry about the details, but on the left side is the contact object. On the right side is 4 different objects. So we are taking the contact object and splitting it actually into records on 4 different objects. And why would we do that? Why would we normalize the data? So here's a contact, Don Kennard. He's got a couple different email addresses. Okay, now we are all familiar with the contact object and how it's structured. We're used to the idea of, oh yeah, email 1, email 2, phone number 1, phone number 2. Well, that's not normalized data because email is really a kind of thing, and you're repeating it on the same record. And so when you we're getting snow, look at that. That is so cool.
It's not normalized.
We should normalize the snow. So the idea of data cloud and normalizing data is that, okay, we are going to take the information that truly is about the individual, it's just not repeated, we're going to have tied to the individual. But things that are repeated on that record, we're going to put into a separate object, the email object. And each one of those is going to have its own record. Now, this is a bit of detail, but I guess I'm bringing this up because when you implement it, you do make decisions about what am I going to do with this data. I've got my Salesforce data in this case, but there's what they call the canonical data model. So Data Cloud has its own data model, which is different from Salesforce core. And you have to decide how much am I going to match my data to the canonical model, or when am I going to ignore it and just do a custom object in a sense. Do my own custom thing in Data Cloud. So in this case, we decided, yes, we are going to normalize our data following this model because when you do identity resolution, because you're going to get profile data from all different systems. At minimum, like Marketing Cloud has its own profile, which is the subscriber, right? We know about subscribers in Marketing Cloud. And then your website might have, we have users. We have logged in users on our website. So then that's another profile, right? We have to have a way of unifying them And we need a way of reconcile their email addresses. So they need to be separate records. That's the way that Data Cloud deals with it, right? Is having the emails, the things that can be multiple, that you can have multiple of, be able to reconcile. Okay, but you know what? There might be times when you don't normalize data. And and we might change our mind. You know, for now, we're not normalizing subscription management. Okay, subscription management. Now, when it comes to Marketing Cloud for us, I don't know about you guys, but we basically have a cloud page, custom cloud page that updates it's basically a table, right? It's your data extension. It's us updating a data extension. And so each person has a row, and there are different subscriptions, which are just columns, and it just updates whether they're opt in or opt out, right? It's not the best system. I know there are drawbacks to it, but it's working and it's what we have right now. This is not normalized. Now I have those subscriptions. Those are separate. Those are all the same kind of thing, and yet I have them all in one row, in one table. There is a data model that Data Cloud has called the consent model, consent data model. Okay. That consent data model has, I think, 4 different objects. And so every time someone agrees to something or does not want something, it creates different records. Okay. You can vary, because of this consent data model, I can vary not only what people subscribe to, but which email address to use for which subscription, the frequency, how often should they receive that subscription, how long this consent is good for. You might not think of that as subscriptions, but I also have UI, UX people who are doing interviews around the website, and they contact people and get consent to be part of an interview group, right? And so we could manage that through consent data model, because it's for a certain period of time. Also, the right to be forgotten. The consent data model helps you to manage the right to be forgotten. So, okay, so I could have gotten all those things, but we don't need those things right now. And we'll just deal with the drawbacks of the model we have. But so this is some place where, you know what? I don't use the consent object. I bring in our data extension as a table into Data Cloud. That's it.
And this is fine.
Yeah.
Only
I don't have to
I'm
use.
always for things don't change things that doesn't need immediate change. But now that you know that there is consent model to support all of this, when they ask you to do anomalies on this table, are you going to convert to consent?
Who's they? Who's
For
they?
business.
Oh, business, right. So yeah, so I will say that when I said, I'm the one Salesforce admin, we are finally bringing on a Salesforce or Marketing Cloud admin who's going to help me with this now. And we have a bunch of things to look at when it comes to subscriptions. And so I thought that, okay, when we re-examine this, I will take a look at the consent data model. I also know that I don't have to use every single object on the consent data model. So yeah, I'm definitely thinking about the transition. So I know what we have is not good. For example, there's no real history, which is not, I don't even know if there are laws around that. Like, I don't know if we're going to get in trouble. But
Before you go
Yeah.
further, when you're talking about this is concept, can you show us what Data Cloud looks like?
oh yes, and I will. And I'm sorry, I am going through a bunch of slides, but I do have actual demo.
Yeah.
And I should maybe intersperse the demo a little bit. And maybe I'll have to think about that. I'll get to it soon though. The other thing about connecting that I wanted to bring up was, okay, getting to know the data structure, data architecture, and other systems. If people have only worked in Salesforce, you kind of only know those objects, right? But before you got to know Salesforce, you didn't know about those objects, right? like contact object, lead object, opportunity, like Salesforce has its own data architecture, but for example, we wanted to bring in Google BigQuery data. Okay, so I talked to my Google Analytics guy. Salesforce developed a free, as far as Data Cloud goes, zero ETL connection to BigQuery. So we were not consuming credits for like the millions of records. Okay, there would be credits for pulling, acting on that data, but not on just simply pulling the data. Like, hey, fantastic. So the week I was like bothering my AE, like, okay, when this comes out, tell me when this comes out. You know? When it finally came out, we connected it up. I asked my Google Analytics guy to give me access, hooked it up, and it said, okay, what table do you want to connect to? And it gave me a table for every single day. So anyone who deals with data, like the back end, like, okay, I'm trying to pull in data into a single table. But they've got a table for every single day. So this is like a problem. So then I said, okay, maybe this is just the way they have it set up. I don't know Google Analytics. I don't really know Google BigQuery. I don't know how things. So I said, well, how is Google actually structured their data? And so, well, I looked into it. It turns out there's a data cube, a multi-dimensional data cube. Okay, because you think of 2 dimensions and 3 dimensions. Well, this is beyond 2 dimension, 3 dimension. It's a multi-dimensional data cube. And the only visual I could find that I thought described this pretty well was this one. It's just, okay, I didn't really understand. This is like pretty psychedelic kind of concept of like many, many dimensional data. So I said, okay, that's not going to help me. I need to go back to what is the canonical data model? What is the data that I need and what form do I need? And so this kind of, I've heard this said before, but this kind of made it real for me. Like, okay, go to the website engagement model, data table, right? How is it structured? What data is it expecting? And say, okay, what data do I have? And let's just match it up. And so my Google Analytics guy was able to do that. I told him what I wanted, and he fed me a table. And so the lesson from there is transform the data, get to know the data that you need, transform the data outside of Data Cloud before you bring it in. That's really the best practice, and this was just a use case that taught me that it really is true. So, okay, unifying the data. I will just go briefly over this. I will say that there's a few different objects when it comes to unifying individuals. One of them that's really important is the party concept. So everyone has IDs. We have users with IDs. We have contact ID, right, or Salesforce ID. You might have IDs you assign your users, right? There's all kinds of ID numbers, right? So what you want to do with the party concept is to take those IDs and put it into an object. So the object is the party, right? And for example, an example would be a driver's license is an ID, right? When you store an ID, you have to give it not only what the number is, but what kind of ID this is. This is a driver's license number. Okay, here's the number. Every system you have, you're pulling in. You have to make sure you define that as you're pulling it in, what kind of ID this is, so you can match them up. Because you can have the same number that's a driver's license number and a loyalty card number. It could be that they're the same number, because if it's the same form, so you have to make sure that both of those match up. Marketing clouds, they try to make data clouds easy by having bundles to automatically bring in data. So we use the standard marketing cloud bundle. When it brings in the subscriber key, it automatically labels the subscriber key as MC subscriber key. So now, because that ID, which is usually the Salesforce ID, it's called MC subscriber key. When I pull it in from Salesforce and create a party identification, I also have to call it MC subscriber key. Otherwise, they won't match. it won't know that they're the same kind of ID. I know that's getting into detail, but just to say that you don't have to remember all that, but just to remember that, party is an important, essential part of unification. You have to understand how it works.
You had one person is one party record,
Well, no,
or party is
one ID is one party
one
record.
entity that is related to this individual.
Every single ID number will be a separate party record.
The individual is unique, and parties are where he has played.
Yeah, so individual to party will be one to many. It'll be one individual, and there can be many parties. So it could be, like the Salesforce contact ID can be one ID. Subscriber key could be another ID. You can have multiple IDs.
Salesforce user would be third one.
Yeah, well, yeah, that would be another one, right? User ID, if there's some sort of ID number.
And in Salesforce Classic has this notion, they were trying to make individual object. Is this used somewhere somehow in this concept?
Which object?
Individual.
I don't know that that's right. It was there, but it's not. I mean, Data Cloud is its own cloud, and it really is separate from core. And maybe I should switch over just to kind of.
I'm just wondering, historically, they used this term already for something. Just wondering, did they land it now together somehow?
I don't know because I never used the individual.
It's built by a different company, so it's something.
Okay.
I think they do use the concept.
The concept might be, but the data cloud that engineering background is a different group of people than Salesforce.
No, I know, but Salesforce has standard object called individual. That was hidden underneath to be used for something.
Yeah.
This is why I'm trying to uncover it. Is it now something that's emerging from historical development?
I don't know.
Yeah. So when it comes to actually looking at Data Cloud, now of course, I'm in production. That's the only way because I don't have a Data Cloud sandbox. And I want to show you what we actually did. But when it comes to Data Cloud itself, so much of it is you don't actually see the data. You see the metadata, right? You see the structure of behind the data. So, for example, data streams are the connections that you have, basically. The data as it's coming in, right? And then data lake objects are the objects that created as the data comes in. Okay. And so, for example, I've got a contact. This is from Salesforce itself, right? This is from Salesforce Core. But then I have.
Do you use leads in your?
In our we do.
But then leads are another part.
Yes.
Because they have different ideas.
That's right. And that's complicated. Yes. BigQuery is a separate, entirely separate thing. And then Salesforce Marketing Cloud has its own data lake objects, right? So these are some, I don't want to get too much into the technical stuff because that's like its own training. But when you look at Data Cloud, you're basically looking at the metadata, the data, the tables and the structure of those tables and how those tables are related to each other and all this kind of stuff. It does have one cool visual thing, which is the relationship between them. It can show you as a graph.
So is this data real time or it's a kind of a background job which runs every 30 minutes to pull the data?
They always say close to real time, and when they say close to real time, it can be close to real time. If you use all of the real time streaming kinds of connectors, but that's going to cost you. So we really think about, well, for our use case, we don't really need real time. So much of our data is coming in once a day that it doesn't need to get Data Cloud more often. So we're okay with just, having come in daily, acting on it. So anyway, I'm not going to get into all the details of this because I don't know that in the end it would be a technical discussion. But I did want to show you a little bit about, the next stage, which is acting on it. Now, one of the things we did want to do was to bring the data together for a customer 360. Okay, and we thought, okay, how are we going to do this? How are we going to bring that data together? Our assumption before we got Data Cloud was that people would be looking at the unified profile because they always talk about that. The unified profile is when you bring, your website, your email, your Salesforce, every piece of data together, and you look at them together on the unified profile. And you look at their presentations, they've got this beautiful unified profile stuff, which I'm sure is a bunch of Lightning Web components because it's like, where do I get that component? It's like, I don't know, I build that. When we looked at it, at least for now, and this is the size of the company that we are, and the fact that it's me and the consultant that we work with, and that's pretty much it. So we decided that for us, for now, we're going to take the Data Cloud content, but we're going to display it on the contact object. Our users are still operating using contacts, leads, accounts, right? They're still using that. They're still there. And so if we want them, when they're working with an individual to get a customer 360, they're going to see it there. We're going to bring the data to them. And Salesforce has been building bridges between Data Cloud and Salesforce Core. You heard a little bit there from Jen about Salesforce flows and Data Cloud. And one big step she was talking about was a change in a Data Cloud object could be a trigger for a flow. Okay, that's pretty big because they can be a change. It could be they're looking at millions of records, and there's a change to that one record, and it's going to trigger a flow. Like that's really interesting. I don't know. You have to be really careful about your architecture of your flows and knowing what your limits are. But anyway, so just to show you, this is our current customer scorecard, and this is me, so I'm not exposing anything confidential. So we have an overall customer engagement score. How many years of membership have they been with us? What's their email persona? We look at our different products and say, okay, have they logged into certain sites recently? This is just a visual, right? The data is the data. This is just giving us a visual. This person is not logged into our member app. They have no stats related to the member app. It's like 0 there. I have updated my profile on our website. So all good there. I've not logged into any of this platform because I'm not a realtor, so I don't really use those things. I am subscribed to our communications. This has come from Marketing Cloud. I've accessed the learning portal. This is coming from our Disable is what we use. So we're linked to that. It's one of the things that one of the way to bring the data in. And this is some graphs of my website logins.
So all of this data is external to Salesforce being pushed in.
This is a mix. Some of this is Salesforce Core. Some of this is Data Cloud. That's it, really. Data Cloud and Salesforce Core.
This is the page layout, right? You can customize this, right?
This is me creating something at the level that I know. And I think if I had a developer on staff, I think I would develop a Lightning Web component.
Okay.
But I use a ScreenFlow.
This is the screen flow.
This is a ScreenFlow.
Okay.
And is this member object a native object? Or is it
We renamed the contact object.
This is the contact we're looking at.
I hate it. I hate the fact that we renamed it. I just kind of left it alone.
So, but you have to build this like screen flow to show all this data.
Yeah.
Within data cloud.
Within Flow.
using Flow, I mean,
Yes.
like, but this is data cloud, right?
Well,
Originally, what it should
It's
be.
powered by data cloud.
it's powered by, well, it's a standard flow.
Yeah,
And it's pulling in data. When I go into, and actually I should go ahead and see that. If I go into the flow, this is a standard flow. It's a
Yeah.
screen flow.
yeah,
And when I do a get object, I can get a data cloud object.
uh,
And that's really all it is. It says, do you want a data cloud object or a Salesforce object?
okay,
So in this is part of the beauty from my perspective as an admin, is that if I know Salesforce core,
yeah.
then there are a bunch of things I can do. I just need to just get to know data cloud's data structure.
And this is huge improvement since 2019.
Yes.
When they first time launched the flow, I was doing presentation similar to this, trying to tell people, hey, if you have use case, you can get this for free and things like that. But nobody was biting at this time use cases. But none of this was available. And if you think about door that you open by being able to read data cloud objects from the flow.
Right.
Now you can do all kinds of visuals, you can
Yes.
do all kind of data mining if you need it.
Yes.
You
Now,
can start your journey emailing from it, you can do all kind of things.
now, I wouldn't say that the Salesforce core is a real great analytics tool. That's why they bought Tableau. But if you want to do some basic reports, I can create reports. Okay, this is just the normal report builder, right? So data cloud report. Okay, so I just create a report on any objects I have in data cloud. Some of these are custom objects because sometimes we just brought in, it was a custom object in Salesforce, it was a custom object in data cloud. But I might want to combine the data cloud objects with some other objects. So you can use standard tools to work with data cloud records.
So do we have any limitation on a number of records pulling from the data cloud? For example, in the flow, you're showing data from data cloud.
Well,
Since we have
it's really about knowing your flow limits, right? It's really about that, and including timeouts, right? And so even though I say, you can do all this stuff with data cloud records, well, okay, but how many seconds does it take to process that for flow? And it's also why I think about, well, okay, if I had a developer, maybe I would have a developer do that instead, because flow is not the most efficient. And so I can hit timeouts. And so I will limit the number of records. Also key to one of the features that's coming out, which is to say, okay, do a get records, but limit it to this number of records. Right? Yeah, because those limits are still there.
But since we are storing like millions of data on the data cloud, so we can't utilize the full volume of the data which we have in data cloud, since we have the limitation on pulling the information.
I think you have to decide what's important. Like, for example, when I'm doing an individual, looking at individual and looking at their website engagement, I don't know that I really care what they did more than a year ago. I might have more than that data for analytics purposes, but I don't know that I need it for this view. So I'm going to only look at,
So this could be, a use case could be if they have navigated to one specific spot on your website, one specific page, and taken some specific action,
yes.
then you could feed that into Salesforce, fire off an email to them, or anything that's what we do.
Yes.
Okay, I have a question about reporting. You're saying you can report on that in Salesforce, standard reporting, you build a custom report type, you can join different objects together. Can you join Salesforce objects with data cloud objects?
In a report. Actually, wait a second. I don't know if I've done that. I don't know about that. Because I can see what I've done is, because all your Salesforce, so I just haven't had to do that because all my Salesforce data is in data cloud.
Right.
So anything that's important to me is in data cloud. So when I report, if I want to report on, let's say, the contact and the and the website engagement, I just use the individual object.
But your flow reached out to a data cloud object.
Yes.
So the question then becomes, can the report reach out to the same data cloud object?
Well, a single report, see, the way Salesforce works is you have report types. And they define what objects you're going to be using for that
Yes,
report type.
but one of those report types could be a data cloud.
Yes, so definitely there are report types which are built in when you get data cloud of all the data cloud objects. They can just automatically populate. But the question is, can you combine in a single report a data cloud object and a Salesforce core object? Well, to me, it's not really an issue because I simply create reports based on, I bring all the important Salesforce data into data cloud. It's all there, but the context is there as individual. But if I want to filter the individual by the contact only, because well, this is getting into too much detail, but like contact is there, but also SFMC subscriber is also there. They're both there as individuals. Okay. But if I want to get just the contact, then I'll just filter by the data source. It came from Salesforce core. Because when you bring data into data cloud, it has certain standard values, certain fields. One of the standard fields is where did it come from? Where did this data come from? So I can always filter by that.
You can do calculations and things within Data Cloud to transform your data and summarize it.
Yes,
So you're not pulling out all the detail then back into Sales Cloud.
that's right. Which leads me to calculated insights. So we are used to formula fields and flow as automations, and then code for anyone who's a developer has access to developers, right? In Data Cloud, we have things like calculated insights, which are essentially SQL. Yeah, it's because, okay, when you think of a formula, what the classic example they give for calculated insight is lifetime, what do they call it? Lifetime customer value. We don't use this. How much have we sold to this person, right? And I think of that as a single value. This is how much this person has bought from us for this lifetime. All right. Well, so I think of a formula as a field. And I thought of calculated insight as the same thing. No, calculated insight creates a table. It can create multiple columns, multiple calculations. And so when you create a calculated insight, it has its own tool. Now, if you know SQL, you can use SQL. Okay. Anyone here use SQL? Some? Okay, some people do. So you can do that. But they give you a visual, which is kind of like Flow. They give you a visual tool for doing calculated insight. So this is a simple calculation. I want to know how much my users have been using the schedule reports feature on our website. Okay, so I pull in the website engagement object. Okay, I'm going to filter by let's see, it's a little bigger. The engagement type is equal to, so I'm choosing a certain field. Engagement type is equal to this text value. Because I work with my Google Analytics person, and I know that this is what Google Analytics is going to feed me. Every time this feature is used on my website, this is the tag I need to look for. Okay. So, okay, very simple. And then I'm going to, once I filter for that, I'm going to aggregate. When I think of aggregating, I think of this, okay, you know, I'm a Salesforce background person, so I think this is like a Salesforce report. It's like generating a report for me. I've got fields I can group by in my report, right? Those are dimensions. So I'm going to group by the individual because I want to know all the times that this user has done this on my website. So I'm going to group by individual. Makes sense to me. The measures are the summary or the when I summarize data in a report. Now you could say, I want to count this or sum this or average this in a report, in a Salesforce report.
Yes, you do aggregate.
Yeah. So here it's aggregating it, but it's this is the measure. So you create measures. And so this is a count of them. This is the minimum time, because I want to know the first date when they did this. And this is the maximum time, or the last time that they did this. Okay, so now I've got a table where I've got the individual, total number of times they've hit this part of my website, the first time they did and the last time they did. And so this is how I'm building a table called Calculated Insights. And I can then access that from my flow. I can just look up, instead of doing something in my flow, I've done a Calculated Insight. One way to access it is through a flow. I can get that. I can match, match by this individual ID, right? Just pull this records for this, and then I can show that. I can display.
Is that what's populating your screen flow on that?
Yeah.
Remember? Yeah.
So I can pull, Calculated Insight is also an object in a sense. It's a table. And I can pull that in. I can report on this. So I just wanted to explain, because to me, when I thought of Calculated Insights, to me, they sounded like a single number, a single field. But no, it's a table, really producing a table. So I talked about this a little, copy fields and related lists.
10 minutes.
Okay, all right, good. All right. So I also can show Data Cloud content right here on the record. These subscriptions, this is from Data Cloud. So I'm in Salesforce. I'm showing data from a table that's in Data Cloud on the contact record. Okay.
And this is embedded in contact record page, or it is?
It's not a flow, right?
It's not a flow. It is absolutely a, where did I put it? Oh, here it is. It's a Data Cloud copy field. So they give you, they say, okay, you want certain information actually copied. It does actually copy the data into your records.
So it takes up data consumption in the Salesforce side.
On the Data Cloud side, it's true.
On the Data Cloud side.
Yes.
But you're not going against your Salesforce data?
It's fields, but it's already a record anyway. So I'm not worried about the number of fields.
But this is saying like you have two new components here. One is Data Cloud related list, and one is Data Cloud copy field.
That's right. So copy field is because I want to copy some because there's a one-to-one relationship for this data. This data, every individual has a set of subscriptions, and they just have one subscription, one value each. Now I've got like 8 different subscriptions, but I've got one value each, right? So one field for each of these. Now there are related lists because there'll be some things that I want that have one-to-many, right? Like I want to be able to show email engagement on the record. So this again is Salesforce, is Data Cloud data that I want to show directly on the contact. Now this is taking a few seconds because it's actually pulling the data. Oh, this is taking long. Come on.
This is fine. Let it go. Just let's discuss. This is data residency 0. Now you're reading from somewhere else.
It's not actually creating a related
In this
list.
case, Data Cloud. But if you connect your Data Cloud for another data residency, like Oracle Data or something like this, then this would be proxy for you to go to another database to read. Do you have this use case?
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Now you're using data
It's a
related list
Right.
to bring data from Oracle Cloud. If you use Data Cloud to connect with Oracle database,
Okay.
Their data is sitting in Oracle.
Yes. Yes.
Your data cloud is just definition of what you're reading. Data.
Yes.
It's just metadata. No?
Yes.
You can expose it here as
Yes.
another related.
Absolutely. As long as it's got a relationship, and when you define your object, you define relationships. It's the old idea of foreign key, right? So what field is the foreign key? So as long as it's related to the individual or the unified individual, then I can bring it into the contact.
And I think this is what was missing for data cloud to be adopted more here now. Now that they're hitting the sweet spot of the market with this capability, because for doing something like this, you always need to do developing something, doing this, doing that. Now I get a tool to you can use as proxy to go anywhere else in the scope.
Yeah. Now they do have limits. There are only 2 copy fields allowed. Now you might say, well, wait a second. I saw you had like 6 fields. Really, what it is, it's funny. They call them copy fields. It's actually a copy table in a sense. The subscription table is 1 table. So that uses one of my copy things. If I access another table, that'll use up the 2. So as far as actually taking data and populating my contact record, I can only access 2 tables.
Let's say 2 objects.
2 objects.
Data cloud.
Yes.
And as many fields as you want.
As many fields as I want. I don't know if there's a limit. I didn't try. But related lists, I'm not sure about if there's a limit. But what there is a limit of, because they know engagement data, when you relate, that's like millions of records. Like you saw how long it was taking to put, it limits it to 7 days by default. It's only going to pull the last 7 days. You can override that by using a dynamic related list, or like a standard related list like this. I can change the dates and it'll get more data. But this again is showing a little bit of the limits that Salesforce Core has when it comes to large volumes of data.
But if your business is broken down to the granular actions, okay, this will help, because you need reason all the time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, mostly those use cases where, okay, whenever I've hit things where things are taking too long, I really have to stop and think, why am I getting so many records? Do I really need that many records? All right, well, I want to wrap it up. I wanted to show you the kind of the actual use case of a company that's using Data Cloud. I do want to say that there's some great resources out there, of course, for learning about Data Cloud. And I've given the deck to Sandy, so Sandy can share the deck with you guys. I will say, I love this guy, Matt Wash. He's the best when it comes to explaining data. Every time he does a webinar, I want to watch it because he works for Salesforce, but he's the kind of person, like when he presents, but he just like throws in, like he just naturally throw in real world examples and just makes it more natural. I don't know, he's a good presenter. Just want to share that.
Wow.
You did it.
I want to check in with our folks online. Does anybody on the interwebs have any questions? Questions?
So I have like 2 questions regarding the data clouds. Like when you have built a flow and you are extracting the data from data cloud and showing it to the user who is viewing the contact record, does the user needs to have a kind of license in order to see the data?
No, they don't. So that is interesting because I've not played with what are the limits of that. Certainly, they don't have to see it when it comes to anything on the contact object. Anything within, but the Data Cloud app itself, like to do anything with like data lake objects, like they can't see any of that. Reports, I'm almost positive they don't. I've not had users creating their own reports. So, yeah, I'm not sure. Rebecca, I'm almost positive no.
And like I have the second question regarding that. So for example, we do connect multiple systems into data cloud. For example, the payroll system and other sensitive information in data cloud.
Yes.
And if somebody has access to the data cloud, can they able to see that information?
Right. I know that, okay, this is something else that I have not dealt with yet, because I don't have any kind of personal information like that some groups can't see. So I know that there is definitely a trust layer, and there's definitely permissions you can assign, but I've not dealt with it.
I know in my org, I can only like view the model and things, but I can't change anything within the cloud. I just got.
View only.
Yeah, it's our developer has like full access, but I can always, like, I can see what's data's coming in and how it's being mapped and anything like that, but.
Okay.
And I can see what transformations are happening, but I can't touch it.
Yeah.
Change it.
All right, that was awesome. I think you're ready for the conference.
All right, great. Thanks, everyone.
All right, so I'm gonna ask you to stop the screen share for a second.
Oh, yeah.